Hi, my name is Jimmy Bruno. Welcome to my Hot Licks video. What I hope to do with this video is to show you all the shortcuts that I know. Because I've been doing this for a long time. There's a few things that I've noticed about the guitar and a few things that I notice about music. And one of the first things that I get asked all the time is I always get this question, what would you play over G7, +5, flat 9? Well, to me, there is no such chord. There's only three kind of chords to me. It's a major chord, a minor seventh chord, and a dominant chord. So G7th, this altered G7th, is no different to me than this, okay? And most of the standard jazz tunes that people would play have a lot of 2, 5, 1s, okay? A 2 chord is a minor seventh chord, a 5 chord is a dominant, and a 1 chord is a major seventh. Now, it's called a 2 chord because it's built from the second degree of a scale. In this case, it's a D minor seventh, and that's the second degree of a C scale. Number 2. 1 is obvious, it's major seventh, because it comes from the 1 chord. And 5 is the 5th note. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, G. So, in other words, all those 3 chords are inside a major scale. So, for example, if I just took a simple 2, 5, 1 progression, D minor 7, G7, C major 7. Okay. Well, all the notes of a C scale fit over that. And if somebody had said that to me, the first question I would ask, well, what's the difference? Why do you need to know a scale for D minor 7th and a scale for G7th? Well, the answer is when the chord is, for example, G7th, we have the arpeggio, G, B, D, F, G, B, D, F. Okay, those are the 4 most important notes in the chord, and it's the arpeggio. It's the root, the 3rd, the 5th, and the 7th. And those are kind of like the legs on a table. The legs hold up the table. These are the notes that hold up the harmony. So when the chord's G7th, this note G has a certain sound, a very important sound. That's the center. It's the heaviest melodic sound. B has a different sound. D, yet another one. And F, yet a different sound. Now, the same thing would happen with a C chord. C, E, G, B. Here's what C sounds like, C major 7th with C on the top. Here it is with the 3rd on the top, the 7th, the 5th, and the 7th. D minor 7th, same process. Root, 3rd, 5th, 7. Sound with the root, sound with the 3rd, sound with the 5th, and the sound with the 7th. Okay. So in other words, when the chord is D minor 7th, for example, these 4 notes stick out of this C scale. Remember, it all came from this C scale. When a chord's C, this has a certain sound. Now let's check out some of the other notes. Here's a C with C on the top. Here's the next note in the scale, D. There's the 3rd. There's the F. To me, that's not one of my favorite notes. You have G, here's A, B, C, okay? So my point is that as the harmony is changing in a tune, the functions of these notes and their melodic weight is changing at the same time. To give you a more dramatic example of what I mean, here's a plain C chord with C on the top. And that C has a certain sound. Now, it's the same note, but the color of the C is changed. It's changed yet again. Okay. Now, it's a lot easier to hear there than it is in my other example. But if you practice this the right way, you'll get to be able to hear it. So it sounds like there's a lot of there's a very complex process that's going on. The harmony's moving. You're trying to change chords around. The chords are changing. And you're moving notes around, and geez, how's anybody going to make music? Well, it's a bit simpler than that. The first thing to do is that I find that there isn't any substitute, there's no shortcuts for learning the major scales. To me, inside the major scale is everything I need. I can also convert different notes of the major scale. I can convert the scale to other scales. So it's important that you have a good foundation fingerings a major scale. And that brings me to like one of my pet peeves is that every guitar instruction method that I see, there's 9 zillion fingerings for scales, you know. And you'd have to live to be 400 years old to get them all right? And a lot of them are bad. Like this is like, here's an example of one that I don't think is very efficient. And I see that in a lot of books. Somebody told me it came from like classical fingering. Here's another one that I think is pretty hideous. Yeah, well, if I had to play fingerings like that, I wouldn't be able to play any faster than that, and I wouldn't be able to play anything really. I could not make music out of those. Or yet worse, I even seen this one time. You know, and the idea, remember I asked somebody, well, what's the idea behind that? And the idea was, well, to learn what the notes are. Well, that seems like a wasted step to me. They would think that the easiest way to do it is to learn both at the same time. Find a good fingering, an efficient fingering, and one that you can also learn the notes, okay? I found 6, and these are the only 6 that I used. I threw all the other ones away years ago when I found out that they didn't work. I tried to play jazz with them, and it just doesn't work. So for me, this is what happens. Very first one is this. By the way, I'm on the 6th string, 8th fret, 2nd finger. Okay, and I also call that, I gave it a name, and you'll see why later on. I call it 6V2. 6th, 6th string. The V is vertical because it went across the neck this way, and 2 because it started with the 2nd finger. Okay, now the next one that I found, I call it 5V2. 5th string, vertical, 2nd finger. And that goes like this. Okay, there's something else that I need to point out about these fingerings is that I try to keep them symmetrical. In other words, I didn't play the F scale like this. With the 2nd finger there, because that's the 9th of the chord. When I played C, the 9th of the chord came on the 1st finger. Okay, so I try to keep them all, I call them symmetrical. Because what happens is that I've found out that your ear and your hands, they make this connection. And I picked this up from saxophone players. I always noticed that you can get a little kid and he could play the saxophone. You ask him to play Happy Birthday, and he could pretty much find the notes a lot easier than a guitar player. It's because we have too many fingerings, there's too many possibilities. And just imagine if you played saxophone, every time you put your fingers down in a certain way, you hear the same thing. Well, on guitar, it's not so. So I try to make it a little bit easier. So 6V2, 5V2, and they're symmetrical. All right. Now I need something from the 4th finger as well. I do the same thing here. This one's called 6V4. Now 5V4. Okay, so now if I have D minor, G7th, and C, okay, I know that's all a C scale, and I know that when it's D minor 7th, there's the D, F, A, C are the important notes, and the notes in the scale all gravitate towards D, and when it's G7th, all the notes gravitate towards G, and when it's C major 7th, all the notes gravitate towards C. In other words, the way the notes sound against the chord keeps changing all the time, like I said in the beginning. Now, okay, so I have a C scale here, one here, 6V4. Okay, now I need something to go up this way. So this is called horizontal fingering, and it's called 6H2. 6 string, horizontal, second finger. One on the 5th string, this is an F major, 5H2. Okay, now I'm just going to take one fingering, 6V2, and I'm going to show you what's inside there. Well, obviously first there's the C major chord is in there, C major 7th. Okay, so C chord, all those things work. Now, D Dorian, okay, or D minor 7th scale. To me, it's a D minor 7th scale. I also see in books, well, to make a Dorian mode, you lower the 3rd and the 7th. Well, that makes you play a D major scale, like this. Now, then you got to think, well, I got to lower the 3rd, and then the 7th. Okay. Well, I mean, I started out playing like that too, and then I came to realize, boy, that D major has nothing to do with 2-5-1 in the key of C. And also, that's kind of a strange fingering. Then I realized that so all I have to do is I don't really have to learn another fingering for a D Dorian. I just play a C scale and make believe that I played the first note. So I'm just going to go like this for now. Make believe I didn't play that. I'm just going to keep the fingering the same. Now I have D Dorian. I'm going to do it again slower. Minor 7th chord. I didn't learn a new fingering. It's the same as 6V2. I just didn't play the first note. Now, that brings me to the most important thing that I think, for me, the guitar is visual. And it makes a mental picture to me. That 6V2 made a mental picture to me much in the same way as a chord grid does to somebody else. Like it does to every guitar player. You see those little chord grids. Well, to me, this fingering makes a mental picture. And you need to practice it until it does. You need to practice it until you can practice it mentally without the guitar. You know what it looks like. So for me, when I play D Dorian, it's very simple for me to just not play the first note. I still see the same picture. Okay? Same thing would happen with G Mixolydian. I'm not going to play the first 4 notes. Mixolydian is from the 5th degree of the scale. So if you want to count, you can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's where I start, and I continue the same fingering inside there. One more time. So with that one fingering, 6V2, I have a C major scale, I have a D Dorian scale, and I have a G Mixolydian or G7 scale. And also, inside the scale is an arpeggio. Here's a 1-chord arpeggio, a major 7th arpeggio. So I know those are my target notes, or the notes that I like to call the 4 legs of a table that hold up a table. These are the 4 notes that hold up the harmony of this chord. And I know what they know what they're going to sound like. And later on I'll show you how to practice it so your hands can learn the sound and your ear at the same time. Okay, now let's move on to the D Dorian scale, and inside there is an arpeggio. Okay, so now when the chord is D minor 7th, those notes, they kind of light up to me, actually. I see them as being more, I see the stem shift as when the chord's C, it's these. When it's D minor, it's those other ones, the ones I just showed you. Okay, now G7. Okay, so that's inside there. And I'll go later on, I'll go and I'll show you how it is inside of every, it's inside of every one of those 6. And it makes these pictures to you. Okay, but just to show you what's inside this one position, any of these notes would work against this. Okay, it's 2-5-1 in the key of C with a turnaround. Okay, I have Rich with me now, who's going to play some chords so you can hear what this scale sounds like against these chords. Now, for right now, is all I'm going to use is the notes from 6V2, this scale. And I'm going to show you what's going to happen. Rich, play a D minor 7th chord. That's the scale that I took out of 6V2. D minor 7th again. There's the arpeggio. Now on G7th, the same thing. Play G7. One more time. Okay. Now, as the chords are passing by, I'm aware of these notes. But let's say that you're just starting out. Even if you're not aware of these notes, you can play anything out of that fingering, out of that picture. Remember, it's a picture. And it'll be right. There's not going to be any wrong notes. It may not sound very hip because I'm only using just the notes in that scale. So we'll start. He's going to play D minor, G7, C. 1, 2, 3, 4. It'll all fit. Now, when the chord's D minor 7, remember I told you that there was D, F, A, C, and this was the scale. Okay, there's 7 notes, but there's only 12 notes in music. Now, let's talk about the other 5 notes. The other 5 notes that aren't in the scale are C sharp, F sharp, A flat, B flat, and C sharp. Okay. Now it might sound a little more like bebop. I'm going to start using some of those notes. Play the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you see, now it starts sounding a little more like jazz. Now, remember I told you in the beginning I was going to make this easier. Play me D minor 7th, Rich. You notice when he played that chord when we were doing the other previous example, I played C sharp in it. I'm going to show you what it sounds like. I'm sorry, one more time, Rich. Okay. How about we play D minor for just 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Now I kind of like that sound, and I found that sound by accident, by making a mistake on this. Okay. Now, the problem what happens with jazz theory is that, you know, some academician type of guy is going to look at that and go, oh, well, that's D melodic minor. Well, yeah, it is. But to tell you the truth, I wasn't thinking about that scale there. Okay, I was thinking about, I want to try and use some of the other notes that aren't in this scale. And then after you make the music, somebody comes along and analyzes it and says, oh, that's D melodic minor. Well, it is, but I wasn't thinking about that, you know. See, and I think that that's impossible for anybody to second guess and know what I'm thinking about. And see, then it gets complicated. Oh, well, you can use D Dorian, D melodic minor, and D this, and F this, and then that's another whole other thing when they start transposing roots. And well, if I had to learn how to play like that, I would have given up because it's too hard. Okay? So, and then on the G7th, like I played an F sharp. Okay? So now, you also will see in books, people will call that a bebop scale, bebop mixolydian. Okay, well, I don't know about that. I don't know that scale. To me, it's G mixolydian, and I used one of the other notes. Same thing again. Now I'm going to use all the C scales, and inside those C scales, I see the Dorian position, the mixolydian, and the arpeggios. And later on, I'll show you how to practice these so you can get to see them too. And when I say see them, it makes a mental image. And the only way that you get to do that is by practicing it over and over and over and over again. For example, if you just want to be like an okay guitar player and just maybe play at parties, then practice your scales like this. Maybe this might be good enough for you. Maybe an hour a day. You should be okay like that, but you're never going to see the picture. You know, if you want to get real good, maybe work up the scales to this tempo. Okay? If you want to become a jazz artist, then you need to practice it about as much as you can, 8, 10 hours a day. So this is, you know, however way you want to go is fine, but the information is still correct. Okay, now we're going to play the 2-5-1 again, but I'm going to use all the C scale fingerings that I showed you from those 6 major scale fingerings. I'll go over and I'll show you the ones that I'm going to use. I'm going to play this C scale down here, which would be called 5V2. This was the same fingering as the F scale that I showed you here earlier. Okay, now I need a fingering to get to the middle. Here's 5V2 again. Now I'm going to come back with 6V4. Remember, I already practiced these, so I can see the pictures pretty quick. Okay, and now I'm in position to play 6V2 backwards. Now here's a horizontal one, 6H2. Here's 5V2 backwards. Here's a 5H2. Okay? So I see all the notes in this C scale. In other words, if you looked at a piano, just look at the keyboard on the piano, the notes that I'm playing are all the white keys on the piano. So if you played piano, wow, that's a piece of cake. You look down and any of those notes are good. And the other 5 notes that aren't in it are the 5 black keys. So that's what it looks like to me. Okay? Another thing that I need to point out to you to these scales, and maybe this is not something you need to try right now, but maybe later on, is that if you go in any direction on any string, 1 or 2 frets, you'll be inside another picture. For example, now I'm inside 6V4. Now I'm inside 6V2. Back to 6V4. 5V2. Okay, so now I'm going to play 2, 5, 1. First, I'll just play all the notes of the C scale. Just C, D, E, F, G, A, B. No other notes. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. A couple times I played an A flat a couple times. The point is that the way to practice it is get a tape recorder and have somebody go like this. Or you do it. See if you can play as many times as you want. Get those fingerings. Just play around and see what kind of melodies you can make. Remember, music is about melodies and rhythms, so you have to melodicize the scale, as they say. You know, you wouldn't just want to go. Doesn't sound much like jazz. Okay, so I'm going to do it. We're going to do it again. I'm going to start to use some of the passing notes. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. The possibilities are infinite. But remember, I can't say this enough times, that if you practice those 6 fingerings over and over until it makes a picture to you, not only will it make a picture to you, but your hand will get used to going, play a C major 7th chord. That's an easy sound to hear. It's the major 7th. So when you want to play that sound, you'll know how to do it. Same thing with all the other sounds. Same thing with the notes that are outside the chord. It's a lot of trial and error. But in the meantime, you'll be improving your technique and learning, your ear will learn what they sound like, etc., etc. It just goes on and on and on. But remember now, I saved you a lot of trouble because I threw out all the bad fingering. Passing tones. Now, there's a lot of names for these notes. I just call them passing tones because it's easy. Like I said before, when the chord's D minor 7th, this is the scale. It's a D Dorian scale that I got out of 6V2 fingering. Here's the arpeggio. Now, the passing tones, as I like to call them, are the 5 notes that aren't there. There's only 12 notes. And these are the other 5. C sharp, if the chord is D minor 7th, this note would now be in the chord. C sharp, E flat, F sharp, A flat, and B flat. Okay, now I can use all of those inside a D minor 7. Okay, when it's G7th, it'll be different. The 5 notes will change. Here's the G7th scale. Now the 5 notes are B flat, C sharp, E flat, F sharp, A flat, and B flat. Okay, that B flat is one of you probably already noticed. That kind of gives you a blues sound. When it's C major 7th, the notes will change again. You have C sharp, not in the scale, E flat, not in the scale, F sharp, not in the scale, G sharp, not in the scale, B flat. I use a B flat right here. Okay? I use the G sharp as well. Okay? Now, I know at this point I'm oversimplifying this because it would be a lot to learn at one time. So again, I go back to suggesting let's learn what just the plain notes sound like first. Because when you find out what this G sounds like against a C scale, when you're sure of that, then you can go, I use B flat in there as well. So that's where you want it to go, you know. And again, the better you know this, and what it sounds like, and what's the sound going to happen when you put your fingers down. If you hear that note, it's easier to go. Then you know what this one sounds like. Some people call that C Lydian. I don't. It's a C scale with an F sharp in it. And that's a lot easier for me and it gets too complicated the other way. Okay, now, at this point, I'm going to show you what you can do with those 6 fingerings. And now this assumes that you've practiced them and they already made a picture to you. I mean, a real good picture. Can't be any doubt. Okay. I found these little other helpers that help you navigate from going up the neck and also to orient yourself what to play when it's a minor 7th chord, a dominant 7th chord, and a major 7th chord. But for right now, we'll just concentrate on the 2 chord, mostly. You'll see what I mean. If I'm in the key of C and I'm D minor, G7th, and C, or even just D minor to G7. Back and forth like that, okay? Or if the minor 7th's moved. Okay? Now those are 2 5s that moved around. But we're gonna call this kind of like a snapshot analysis, as if somebody just took a picture of music as it was going by. So now, the first D, the chord, I'm assuming that the changes are D minor, G7th, and C. But like I did, it applies to the other examples as well. The first D that I come to is the 5th fret, 5th string, 4th finger. And the C scale that it's near is 5E2. I'm going to play 1 octave of it so you can get oriented. Now I'm going to play a D minor 7th scale, or D Dorian, and I'm just not going to play the first note. call this the first Dorian position. And inside that Dorian position is D minor 7th arpeggio. Okay, now I spoke a lot about pictures. Now there's one that really sticks out to me. It looks like this. Okay, and the scale is behind it. Remember the picture. Okay, so on the D minor 7th chord, that's what sticks out to me, and that's what's important. And now, just here's the progression. And I devised this little exercise, and I'll show you. This is a little background behind it. See this note C right there? Watch where it goes when I play a G7. It went to B. Okay? I kind of call that the note of resolution. In other words. So, when you play the arpeggio, okay, to my ear that makes it sound like D minor to G7. In other words, I'm representing that sound horizontally with notes rather than with chords. In fact, if you just play the bass notes and the note C to G, you can almost hear it. Okay, it's everywhere in jazz. Okay, so now I devised this little exercise to get the picture and to get the arpeggio as well. D Dorian first. The D minor 7th picture. Could use the note of resolution. And come back 5V2, the scale that I took the picture out of in the first place. And add the C major 7th arpeggio as well. So I have everything I need to play over D minor, G7th, and C. When it's D minor 7th, play D minor 7th chord. Play G7th chord. I have the note of resolution and anything out of that 5V2. And then a C chord. Okay. Now, the outside notes. D minor again. Okay, now that was the C sharp. That was in the half step below the root. That's how I think about it, and that's when I hear it. That's what occurs to me. Oh, that's the note that's a half step below the root. I'm not thinking melodic minor. Okay, that's too hard. Let's play a C chord, and here's a half step below every one of the arpeggios. Let me show you every one of the notes of the arpeggio. Let me show you the arpeggio one more time. Okay, now I'm going to play a half step below every one of them. Play a C chord. Okay. Favorite lick of Charlie Parker was that. Okay. So that's on the C. Now on the G7th, okay, the dominant 7th chord in music is one of the most complicated structures of harmony because it takes, every note sounds good against a G7th because it's some kind of alteration. The only note that I wouldn't hang on if I played a G7th chord would be the note F sharp. Okay? I'll give you an example. Play a G7th chord. Here's the root. Play it again. Now it's the flat 9. Now it's the 9th. Now it's the raised 9. Now it's the 3rd. Now it's the sus. That sounds a little funny to me. There's augmented 11th. I like that one. Here's the 5th. Here's a plus 5. Here's a 13th. Here's the 7th. Here's F sharp. That one, I don't know about that one, okay? When I use that note, I usually go play G7. So I used it as a passing note. I went through it. I wouldn't want to land on it, for example, like this. G7. Okay, no good. All right, so Now, as you said, the G7 is very, all dominant sevenths are very complicated because they take all those notes, a lot harder to deal with, okay? So for right now, in the beginning, we're just going to stick to these Dorian positions. And later on, I'll show you how these Dorian positions also we're going to work over a dominant seventh as well, okay? So I'm going to go back to that original example, the D minor seventh scale, the D minor seventh arpeggio, okay? Or I'll say it another way, the D minor seventh picture. That's the way I like to think about it. This is the first Dorian picture. Okay, so Rich is going to play 2, 5, 1 in key of C. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now you see there I used the right out of the exercise. Okay. Now, I'm going to use the way to learn these passing notes is pick one at a time so you know what it sounds like. So I'm going to pick the C sharp first. So every time the D minor seventh comes around, I'm going to try and put C sharp in the line so I can learn what that sounds like. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? Now, I'm not going to go through all 5 here because I think it would make a very long, boring video. But I want to give you something to prove. You can give yourself a lesson. 1 week, take C sharp. Next week, take F sharp. Next week, take E flat. Go through all 5 notes, okay? I'll show you how to do the F sharp one because that one might give you trouble. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, you notice I used it over 2, 5, and 1, and it was a note that I didn't hang on. Okay, you have to be careful because the chord's D minor. If you play F sharp, now you made it D major. So that's like somebody playing a minor chord and a major chord at the same time. Yeah, it might be okay for some, but I don't like the way it sounds. So okay, so that note. So you give yourself pick one of those 5 notes every week. There's there's five weeks of lessons. Okay, then do the same thing with the C major seventh. Pick those 5 notes. Then with the G7th, it's a little more complicated, but you can do the same thing as well. Okay, how about if we pick 2 right now? I'm going to pick the C sharp, the note root, a half step below the root of the D minor seventh, and I'm going to pick the note B flat. There's our note of resolution is B. I'm going to use this note B flat and A flat. Okay, let's see what we get. 2, 3, 4. A flat. Here's your F sharp. A flat. Okay. Now, when you practice it, Dorian position. Now, what I'm trying to do here is this is like a salesman trying to make a pitch because nobody likes to learn scales and it's very boring to practice them. But there's nothing more important than doing it. Now, I showed you all that inside of one Dorian position. There's 7 more, okay? Now, I think I'm going to show you the other 7, but keep in mind, the reason I'm showing you these and the reason you're practicing them is so that you can do all that inside each one and be able to move, okay? The next D that we've come to on the guitar, this was our first one, 4th finger, 5th string, 5th fret. 1st finger, 5th string, 5th fret. And the C scale that's near that, 6V4, and I like to associate that with this picture of a C chord, okay? So I'm not going to play the C, I'm going to start on D. associate this Dorian picture with it. Okay. Now inside this 6V4, there's two D Dorian pictures. Here's the first one, 1 octave. Picture of the arpeggio. Note of resolution. Arpeggio. Or, that's the way I like to do it. So, this picture, okay? And if you get it to make a picture to you, it's amazing that, I think that what happens to me is if I practice it enough times and the picture becomes real strong, it seems like I can practice it mentally without the guitar. And it becomes very easy to go. Okay? There's some picking involved in there, but I'll show you that later on. So anyway, first picture. I'm sorry, second Dorian picture. Scale. Okay. The second octave of that. Arpeggio. Note of resolution, scale backwards. Arpeggio. Okay, so now in this, I have a D Dorian down here, which was the first one. Here's your second Dorian picture, second or third picture, if you want to think of them as two. Okay, so I have now D minor G7th. I have this, and I have here. Okay, so the same thing is inside here as well. In fact, this one's real good, because inside here I also see this. So sometimes you hear me play a lot of things with double stops. Well, this is one of the things that I use. Okay, and I got that from this picture. It also makes a good D minor 9th chord, D flat 7, a D flat 9. Okay? So I'm trying to show you everything that I associate with these pictures as they go by. Okay, so now let's do our 2-5-1 example here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Only plain notes. Keep going. Arpeggio. Another arpeggio. Flat 9. Here's that C sharp that I like. Okay, now I used part of this Dorian, part of this, and I gave you a little bit of what's the next one was coming up. But also, I tried to use all the passing notes. Like if I want to make it a real consonant sound, I'll stay inside just the plain notes. For example, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now if I'm going to use some make it a little more dissonant, give it a little more bite, I might use flat 9s on the G7th or plus 9. So I find them. Look, if you want to, you can even find them first. There's B flat and A flat. I associate this sound with this chord, by the way, too. So this gives you a chance to go back to this Dorian position. A little slower. 1, 2, 3, 4. There it is. Going back to the other one. Okay, so that works good on a medium tempo tune. Now I can go back and forth between these two, get a lot of different effects. Let's speed it up a little bit. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. a lot of people ask me about these pedals. Okay, what I played there was I held this C, and I played 6V2 backwards. Okay, that's the picture I'm using. I can play around with that picture. I can even do double stop. Okay. Or you can put the pedal on the bottom. A lot harder to do. Okay, there's a lot of stuff in there. The next Dorian position that you come to is here. 4th finger, 10th fret, 6th string. And I'm taking it from 6V2. And there's two pictures here, like there was 2 pictures here. The arpeggio, note of resolution, C major arpeggio, C major 7. Next picture is here. 1st finger, 7th fret, 3rd string. Okay. The next Dorian position, I had to do something a little bit different with this one because if I keep following my same system, I would have to use 6H2. But look what happens if I did that. I would get this. And well, I found one better. Is that if I take this one from 6V4 and then this picture, and if I just transpose the same picture here, it works. So here's the next Dorian position. 1st finger, 10th fret, 6th string. Picture. I'm going to do that one more time. This picture is the same as this. Okay? Now, the top part of this next Dorian position is from 6H2. I'm going to play 6H2 real slow, and I'm going to stop when I get to that position. Okay, so there's where I'm starting from. Okay? Arpeggio. I like to associate that position or that picture with that D minor 7th. Okay? And this one here with that one. Okay. There's one more. This is from 5V4. All right? It's 1st finger, 4th string, 12th fret. Okay, so that's all 8 Dorian positions. Now, after you study this, you're going to find out that I left 2 octaves out. For example, the top octave of C. Well, to me, that's a useless fingering. And the top octave of this one would also produce another useless fingering. Okay, so 8 pictures. I'm going to show you the 8 pictures. That chord I associate with this scale. The 1st Dorian position. Arpeggio. Next 2 pictures. First one. Also inside there, from 6V4 as well. Okay. If you like, sometimes that chord helps you see it. This one. Next one. There's 2 here as well, out of 6V4. Second octave. The one that I kind of stole from 6V4 down here. Again, same chord, or that chord. The top octave of it. The last one, associated with this chord. Those are the pictures. Everything that I played in the first two examples, all the passing notes, all the arpeggios, everything that's there also exists in these other 8 pictures. And like I said, it becomes a picture, and you have to practice it long enough to where the picture gets associated with a sound. And if you do it enough, you can do it. so now you mastered all the 8 Dorian positions. Okay, now I'm going to show you something with that. Everything that you learn on the guitar goes on and becomes a tool to learn the next thing. So it's like kind of like making a building, you know. So you want to get those foundations real strong, because as you try to go on to the advanced stuff, if the foundation is not strong, you won't get it. So let me show you just what you can do with these Dorian positions. I remember a while back I said something about G7, the dominant 7th chord, taking all the altered notes. There's one way that those altered notes get organized, and it's with a melodic minor scale. And the rule goes like this. If it's a G7th chord, you want to use an A-flat melodic minor scale. Okay, and of course, I think that that's way too complicated. But let me show you something, how easy it is to convert a Dorian scale to a melodic minor. Instead of using what a book might tell you, raise the 6th and 7th degrees of a minor scale to make a melodic minor, I got an easier way. I take this D Dorian right here, I'm going to raise the next to the last note. Now I have D melodic minor, okay? And it also has that note that I like. Play D minor 7th, Rich? Okay? I found out that if I take this Dorian position here, and I'm going to play it for you. I'm going to convert it to melodic minor. Okay. Now, I'm going to get that picture and I'm going to move it down to here, to A flat. Okay. Play G7th. Let me show you what we get here. We get, there's the flat 9. There's the plus 9. Play the chord again. There's the 3rd. There's the root. Again. There's the flat 5. There's the plus 5. Play the chord. And there's the root again. Again, the chord. Okay, so here's an example. I'm going to play D Dorian. And then when I get to G7, I'm going to move up a tritone or to there, like that. A flat melodic minor. You know, this reminds me of a funny story. Before there was books and before everybody became so educated about music, my father was a guitarist. And I learned things, here's how things were labeled to me. Tunes went, it was one of these. Or it was one of those. Everything was one of these, one of them, one of those. And I knew what he meant because each one had a sound, okay? So don't get too hung up on the names. So I'm going to give you one of these and one of these. Okay, it doesn't matter how you think about them, but as long as they make a difference, the picture makes a sound to you. That's all you need to know. You don't really need to know the names unless you want to impress your girlfriend or whoever. Okay. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. I moved into the next Dorian picture, and I'm playing D Dorian, E A flat. One of these, and this. 2 pictures, okay? I'm going to go through all of them, and I'll just show you what this sounds like. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Another quick thing that you can do with a Dorian position. Take any one of those pictures. When the chord goes to G7th, you move down 1 fret. Do it slow first. 1, 2, 3. Okay? You can even go up a half step. Okay? And so I'll give you a couple examples of these shapes moving up and down. I'm going to take this shape, that Dorian picture, okay? 1, and I'm going to move it down a half step. 1, 2, 3, 4. Another way. Okay, so you can move down a half step with your Dorian picture or up a tritone with the Dorian picture that you converted to melodic minor. 1, 2, 3. Okay, you can go crazy with it. Okay, but at the beginning, do it slow and start to know what they sound like. The next thing I'd like to talk to you about, which is probably what I get asked about the most, is the technique, picking. Okay, and let me say this about this, is that I wish there was a shortcut for this, but there isn't. The only way to get really good technique is practice. A long time, a lot of hours. But I did find certain things out, and that I'd be happy to pass on to you. When I started to play the guitar, I learned, like everybody else, down, up, down, up. And you play a scale like this. Down, up, down, up, down, up, okay? And that worked for a long time, except when I started to listen to saxophone players and piano players, I found that I couldn't do what they could do. I couldn't play, Okay, I couldn't do that. I hear those, I hear them play sweeps all the time, especially Coltrane. Okay, so I figured, well, geez, what could I do? I can only go back and forth. You can only do that so fast. So I started to look what happened to the pick. Now, if I strike this string, okay, doesn't matter what string you do this to, you'll see the same thing happen to the pick. I have my second finger on the 5th fret, 4th string, the note G. I'm just going to play one note. Now look where that pick is. It's already resting on the next string. Okay, so if I had to play this, let's say, let's do it like this. And then the next note was here. Now, if I'm using down, up, look what happens. Okay, I'm already there. But to follow the down, up, I have to go around the string and do that. Okay? Okay, so it occurred to me, well, geez, it's already there. Why don't I go like that? Okay? So if this was the next note, it becomes like that. Backwards, the same thing happens. If you strike that string up, stroke, the pick's already at that string. So why go See, it's already there. Okay? So now it's not that easy to switch. It took me a long time to switch. So what I'd like to do now is since you already know these fingerings, I'll give you one fingering, 6V2, and I'll show you the picking, and you can apply the same idea to anything you play, all right? It's been referred to as sweep picking, oscillating picking. It's got more names than I can't keep track of them all, okay? But the idea is simple. Since the pick is already there, you might as well keep using the same stroke. And that's it. It's not any more complicated than that. But like everything in music, it's a simple thing to understand, but it's very, very difficult to get used to. So if I take 6V2, I got down, up, okay? Now you have two notes on the same string. So it's dumb to go two downs, that's for sure. So you don't have a choice. Down, up, the next string. Now remember, the last string I left was up, so I have no other choice but to go down. Down, up, down, up, down, down. Right there. That's the spot you got to get. Do it again. Down, up, down, up, down, down. Right there. You see the pick already is already on the next string. Okay. Again, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down. It's going to happen again right here. Okay, so that much again. Down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down. Again, it happened. Up, down, up. Here's the whole thing. Down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, up. Okay, now backwards. I'm going to start with an upstroke, but I'll show you in a minute that it doesn't matter which way you start. By the third pick stroke, you're back to your other pattern. I'll start with an up. Up, down, up, down, up, down, up. See that? Okay, that much again. Up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Once again, down. Okay. Now it would make no difference if I started on a downstroke. Down, up, up. I'm right where I was before. Down, up, up. The note A was still on an upstroke, so it doesn't matter. Okay, so now what you need to do is do it slow until you get used to making that sweep across the two strings. Until that becomes a habit, just like down, up did. And you're going to find that you're going to have a problem. Your upstroke is going to be weak, especially. Okay. Now, it's a good exercise for that. Pick any note, play down, up, down, up, down, up, and put the accent like this. Now, you're going to accented note and unaccented note. And it's down, up, down, up, down, up. Okay. Now, try and reverse it. Keep the accent the same, accent, unaccented, but start with an upstroke and make it sound see if you can get how close you can make them be. They're almost exactly the same. And work on it until you can get this with a downstroke as an upstroke. Here's up. Here's down. Okay? And another good exercise is to play a triplet, because with a triplet you'd get down, up, down. Okay? And then the next triplet would be an up. So your accent is shifting from a downstroke to an upstroke. Down, up, down, up, down, up. Okay? Okay, and you can work that up. Okay, you got to get your strokes equal, down and up. Okay, and it takes a lot of practice. And if you want to increase your technique, that's what you need to do. It's just physically impossible to get any more technique than, I don't know what the limit is here by going down, up, down, up, down, up. Just physics, motion, you know. So that's what I say. Another exercise might be, you take an arpeggio, something that goes across, let's take 3 strings for now. Simple triad. You go 3 down, 3 up. So you can get to practice the pick going in the same direction. Okay? Then 4 notes. Down, 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 and 3 ups. Take a diminished arpeggio and do it. Down, up, down, down, up. And I found a little trick about this is that if I know that that's coming up, I have 3 downstrokes in a row, I might start it with an upstroke. All right, same thing with a minor 7th arpeggio. Okay, start with an up. Minor 9th arpeggio. So I started with an up, and I have 4 downs after that. Okay, minor 11. Okay. Now, remember, there's practice the scales the right way until it becomes a habit. There's not much more to it than that. And the only way to do it is it takes a long time, because think about how long you've been playing down, up, down, up, down, up, if that's the way you play. If you've been playing that for a long time, it's not going to go away in 2 weeks. Also, going back to the pedal thing, it's 2 downs and an up. And the scale is 6V4. That's the picture that I'm using. And you have to remember also, is the further the further apart the strings are, the harder it is. So you got to watch you don't touch the strings in the middle. If you really want to make yourself crazy, put the pedal on the bottom. Then you got a down and down, up, down. Okay, that's I need to practice that myself. Okay, I'd like to talk to you a little bit now about chords. And if you're like me, or the way I used to be, you'd get a book about chords, and it'd be, 4,000 chord versions, okay, with no rhyme, logic, or reason to it. Well, again, that would be impossible to learn them all. Okay, so now I found another little shortcut. Is from a dominant 7th chord, I can make every other chord. If I pick this C7 here, if I want to make it a minor, I lower the 3rd. If I want to make it a 9th, I raise the root. If I want to make it a major 7th, I raise the 7th. Any configuration is possible, okay? And this is on group 6, 4, 3, 2, okay? There's the next inversion. Okay, so there's 4 inversions. So theoretically, inside here is 4 of every kind of chord that you can possibly manipulate. Okay, once more. Okay, now I like to use this and also follow the rules of music too. Remember, I said something about 2-5-1s. So the first thing I would do after I learned these, first thing I would change is I'd make it a minor 7th. I'm going to go to D7th here. Lower the 3rd, right there. So now I have D minor 7th. Here's the next D7. Thirds on the top, another D minor 7. D7, lower the third, another D minor 7th. This D7, D minor 7. And again, pictures. 4 pictures of D7th, for example. 4 pictures of D minor 7. Okay, now I'm going to connect the pictures and go 2, 5, 1. This is a way that you should practice it. I'm giving you a methodology of how to practice learning chords. Those 2 voicings seem to go together. They're the closest ones. Again. And the last one. Okay. Now, good thing about the guitar is you have a low E and a high E. So if you take this voicing, let's start with D7th again. And this string, same name. So if I get this picture and I take this note and I put it up here, I'll get 4 more D7s up here. Do each one again. Take that note, put it up the top, the other E string. Okay. There's that D7th. This one's easy. All right. This one. Like that, okay? But you want to refinger it, and you'll get this. And this note's going to go up there. Okay. Now, with a lot of practice, now you have to remember, whatever you can do here can now be transferred to the top 4 strings. Okay? And that's 2 weeks of work. 1 week for dominance. That's 3 weeks of work. 1 week for dominant 7ths on 6, 4, 3, 2, that string grouping. 1 week to turn them into minor 7ths. And then a 3rd week to put them on the top 4 strings, and another week to make it minor 7ths. There's 4 weeks. Okay, now add the major 7th, 2, 5, 1. Take a dominant 7th, raise the 7th a half step. Raise all the B flats to B. Easy. All right? Put them on the top. C7. There's the 7th, I raised it. This one's easy. Another, I'm not crazy about that voicing. Change that, change it to that. C major 7. So now you got 2, 5, 1 on 6, 4, 3, 2. Now on the bottom. Same thing on the top. Okay, you need to experiment with making them 9s, minor 9s, whatever. And that brings me to, you need to have this as a chord vocabulary. Okay? Now, as long as we're at it, I'm not going to go through every one, just so you get the idea. Is the group that you got up top, 4, 3, 2, 1, means the 4th string, the 3rd string, the 2nd string, the 1st string. Those voicings can be moved to the middle 4 strings. And here's how I learned how to do it. I took these 4 notes, E, B flat, C, and G. And I found those 4 notes in the middle, E, B flat, C, and G. In fact, it almost kind of looks the same. Exact same voicing in the exact same octave. Take the next one. G, C, E, B flat. And it comes out like that. This one. B flat, E, G, C. Write them down on a piece of music paper if you want to, and you'll get this. And the last one. G, C, G, B flat, E. Okay, well I can do it way up here, but this is easier. C, G, B flat, E. So this in the middle is now this. Okay, now remember, like I said, minor sevenths, ninths, anything you can dream up is now in 3 places: 6, 4, 3, 2, 4, 3, 2, 1, and the middle 4 strings: 5, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so if somebody asks you how many C7s you know, well, you have 4 of them for each group, so now you got 12. Now these 4 strings, the same method that I transpose these. Take these and write them down and play those notes on the bottom 4, and you'll get this. I'll take the group 6, 4, 3, 2. You notice there's a string skipped. Now, let's say I was a real studious student. I don't want to say that too fast. Anyway, so I wrote these down. So I'm going to find these notes: G, E, B flat, and C. I'm going to find them on another set of strings. They parallel each other. One strings 5, 3, 2, 1. And I would get this. See? This is that. Up an octave. It, again, kind of looks the same. So you get yet another set. Okay, here are the 5 basic sets. Okay, that's the science of it all. All right, and there's about a year's worth of stuff in there if you went through it systematically and did it in every key as well. I found that when different playing situations, like especially if I have to play bass lines, okay, first thing that I'll do with a chord is throw away the 5th. You don't need it. I like the way 3-note chords sound better. So if I took this minor 7th in the middle, which came from this D7th, lower to 3rd, I'm going to take this note out. So now I got this. Now if I finger it like this, when I play, I'll get this other note in there. So I have to refinger it. Looks like this. Now, I'm going to make it go to G7th, and I can make it go to G7th like this. And I can take that 5th out, okay? But now it doesn't give me much room to work a bass line. That's another reason why you want to take a note out, so you can have a finger free. Okay, now bass lines work like this. Simple bass line. What you want to do is, let's say the chords are D minor 7, G7, C. Again, you want to connect this note D to G. Okay? In a scalular fashion, let's call it like that. Now I can go like this. Okay, so what I did? D, C, B, A, G. All right. Now, let's say I wanted to do it ascending. Or let's pick a different fingering. Now I'm picking this D minor, and I'm leaving out the top A. Okay. Now if I get there, wow, that's only 3 beats, so I'm getting to this G too soon. So I need a passing note. Here's another shape, okay? G7, right? To C. Okay. Now, speaking of shapes, I found out that if I get this shape, I move it down a set of strings to this shape, I have a G7th without a 5th. It was this originally. I'm going to take away the 5th. We're going to get that. So I'm going to go to this C, which was this C7th, and I took this out. Okay? Now. Okay, so now I'll slow it down. G7, C major. Simple one. I'll give you another basic shape, just simple to get you started. It's this D minor, but I'm going to play it like this so I can play the bass line. There, I need that note to get to the G, otherwise I would get to G too soon. Passing note. The rule is you want to approach the root of the chord from a half step or a whole step above or below. Like I can get to that G from above this way. Or a half step. Or below. Has to be a half step because I don't have a note in between. Okay, so now, review. This shape, to this shape, to this shape. Now here you're going to get this shape, to this shape, to this shape. Okay? Another way, you could take this D minor. Okay? Now, you have to remember about bass lines that a lot of it is an illusion. It's like, like an optical illusion. I'm going to play D minor 7, G7 with a turnaround. A turnaround is a couple of chords that turns itself around to the chord, to a specific chord. In this case, I wanted to go back to D minor. Now, there's 3 of these turnarounds. D minor, G7, C major, D minor 7, E minor, A7, okay? That's 1. I call that 1, 2, 3, 6. Then there's another way. 1, 4, 3, 6. And yet one more. C major, B7, B flat 7, A7. I call it 1, 7, flat 7, 6. I'm doing this by numbers because when I do it in other keys, I only think about the numbers. And I don't think about what the chords they are. But from the beginning, you can think about the chords. So you got 1, 2, 3, 6. 1, 4, 3, 6. And they all turn themselves back around to D minor. So. Okay, so it's you think that you're hearing. I'm only playing the chord where I can. I'm not playing a chord every place that you think there is. If I can slow it down, there, I played 2 notes like this, and I'm holding on to it to let it ring as long as possible. And there's another chord. So I'm letting the bass line come first, and not the chords. In other words, it's important for me. It's more important to play a good bass line than it is to make sure that I get all the chords. Some of them are fake me outs. You think you think that you're hearing a chord, but you're not. Like, okay, it sounds like there's a lot of notes there. I always ask bass players, what is that? And say, it's just a tick-a-da-da. Well, what is that? So they made them. That's what it is. There's a technical term for you. Do you know your tick-a-da-das? Okay, now you could go crazy. There's a lot of ways to do all this. First one I showed you. This shape, this shape, this shape, okay? Remember, the important thing is connect the bass lines in a proper way. You want to get to the root of the next chord. You want to approach it by half or whole step above or below the target note. You want to put it on the beat, the first bar of the first beat of the bar where the chord changes. And go for the bass lines first and add the chords later. It's usually a 3-note chord. You'll find your own shapes. This is one of the things that made me switch to 7-string guitar was I want to keep going down. Okay, so I could give you a few examples on 7-string. One of the reasons I switched to 7-string guitar was to get I like to play bass lines, and to get a true bass line, it extended the range a little more. And also, like, for example, this chord here, the G major 9, like this G here, now I can get the whole chord like that. Whereas before in a 6-string, it would be here. You have to remember that this note on the guitar is the same as that, which is really not a bass note. So those other bass lines that I showed you earlier, okay, now, okay, so extended the range of the guitar down a couple more notes, and also a lot of jazz tunes are in E flat, and which is a note you don't have on the 6th string. So, for example, I'm going to end the tune in the key of E flat. You can get that low E flat. And like I said before, the guitar is very visual to me. When I first got this 7-string, I could sort of play it, but I couldn't look at it. And so now I have that problem with the 6-string, because when I look at that, it changed my pictures, so to speak, in a way. If somebody came to me for a private lesson, the first thing that I would do, no matter how well you played or how well you didn't play and what you knew and what you didn't know, first thing I would do is I would standardize all your fingering so we would have a common language. And the very first lesson would be 6V2 and 5V2. That would be the first part of the lesson. The second part of the lesson, I would show you the major 7th arpeggios. Etc. And the third part of the lesson would be like those dominant 7ths that I showed you earlier, string 6, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then I would give you an improvisation exercise. I'm playing over a 2, 5, 1, but in a certain way. But I'll start in the beginning, because a lot of people don't know how to practice. When I talk about playing everything, make everybody do everything in every key, because in order to see the whole picture of the guitar, you need to do it in every key. So I would take 6V2 and 5V2 and go around the cycle of fifths. C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, B, E, A, D, G, C. Play all the major scales like that. Now, you need to start them doing slower. I would suggest maybe this tempo. Etc. I'd go around the cycle of fifths, alternating between 6V2 and 5V2. And I would maybe pick that tempo, maybe a little slower if you need to. And then every day, just move the metronome, get a metronome, and move it the smallest amount that it'll move. You won't even notice it. And the whole idea of the exercise is to get through all 12 keys without stopping. Then you'll know them. For example, I'll play all 12 for you. Okay? Now that's the exercise. And it doesn't have to be that fast, but eventually maybe you can get it that fast. When they're all the thing you're looking for is to make them all the same. You shouldn't be able to play C any better than you should B major or D flat. They should all be the same. And you would do that with the rest of the fingerings as well. And same thing with the arpeggios. C major 7, F, etc. Around the cycle of fifths. Okay, that would be number 2 of the lesson. Now, number 3 would be the chords, and I would do the same thing. 4 C7s, 4 F7s, 4 B flats, 4 E flats around the circle. Etc. The next thing I would do is I would make you take, let's say 6V2, and you would solo over 2-5-1 at random. Just use the fingerings in 6V2. And you would do this in every key. And then the second part of it would be to target the root of each chord so you know what the root sounds like and also where it is. Again, getting the visual connected to your fingers, to your ear. So I'll do it in a key of C. Maybe I'll do 2 keys. Key of C. 1, 2, 3. Remember, I'm targeting the roots. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, the idea is doesn't have to sound, that hip. It's got to just be right, and you can learn what the root sounds like. It has a certain sound, and to describe the sound, it's something you can't describe. It's like trying to describe the color blue or yellow to somebody that doesn't know what you're talking about. So it's something you have to experience. And I would do that in every 6V2, 5V2. In fact, I'll do the key of F. So I'm going to play G minor 7 for a bar, C7 for a bar, F major 7 for 2 bars, and I'm going to use 5V2, this scale. One, two, three, four. And that process would keep going on through all 12 keys, and with both sets of fingerings. All 12 keys with 6V2, 5V2. Next lesson, all 12 keys with 6V4, 5V4. Next lesson, all 12 keys with 6H2, 5H2. Fourth lesson, same thing, connect them. And then I might take the third of each chord and target the third of each chord. I'll just do a real short version of that. Key of C, 2, 3, 4. Okay, you notice that has a different sound than the root. And this same process would go on in all 12 keys, and then I would take the fifth of the chord, the 7th, the 9th, the 11th, the 13th, and then the altered notes. And by that time, there shouldn't be any place on the fingerboard that you would be lost, and also, theoretically, you should know what all the notes are going to sound like. And that's like something you should shoot for. I mean, but that takes a lifetime to do that. I still find things out doing that. Well, that's a good way to see what all the notes sound like and get a pretty good idea of what's going on. And that would basically be, if you took private lessons, that'd be basically your first 5, 10, or 20 lessons. And there's enough information on this video that you can take one piece, combine it with another piece, take a scale, a chord exercise, Dorian position, take those 8 Dorian positions, learn them in all 12 keys. There's a lesson. Then take one of those Dorian positions and target the root of the 2, 5, 1 in there. It just goes on and on and on. Then after, the next thing I would do is I would get these little melodic cells and put them through the scales. For example, learn to play the scale in thirds. F scale, etc. And then make the cell a little bigger. Now I'm going to do that to every note of the scale. Okay, I'll do it through all 12 keys. And it's a slow process, and like I said, I think way back in the beginning, it depends, how good at this you want to get. If you just want to be so-so, then just practice so-so. If you just want to do it for fun, then you don't need to go through all 12 keys, maybe. Find a couple tunes that you like, find out what the 2 5s are, and just find some things that work over those particular 2 5s in that particular tune. And remember, now look, a lot of people will go in a real book and look, and they'll see D minor 9, G13, flat 5, augmented 11 with a broken sync. Like those names that are that long. Well, you want to play D minor 7, G7th, and C major 7th, or whatever, C6 to C major 7. At least that's what to think, okay? Because it doesn't matter, for example, if the chord's G7th plus 5 plus 9, like this chord, okay? Well, a lot of books will tell you, well, you need to play the A-flat melodic minor. Well, to me, that's like writing on a white piece of paper with white ink, because I'm going to play the same altered notes in the scale. Can you play that chord for me? One One more time. Okay, so I'm playing that A flat melodic minor, or that picture that I made before earlier, and Rich is playing the same chord. We're playing the same notes, so we're kind of canceling each other out. Now, the way I think it should be, I think it sounds better if Rich were just to play a plain G7 like this, and I'll play the other stuff. Okay? Go ahead. Again. Okay, so that gives me the freedom to alter the notes. We're not playing the same notes. So here's the opposite. Rich, you play this chord, and I'm just going to play the notes from the C scale. Okay? Ready? 2, 3, 4. One more time. Okay, so now that's creating the tension because I'm not matching it. You know, and you have to remember, in reality, this is all going by. You have to remember that music is vertical. It's moving all the time. The way we're looking at it right now is like taking a little picture of it. And until somebody comes up with a better way to take it apart, that we're stuck with that. But in reality, it's there's a bass player that's going to be going. Somebody might be comping on top of it. Okay, so it's never actually happening at the same time. So the important thing you have to remember is to make it melodic. And that's why, like I said, it doesn't matter if people are extending the chords or altering them, because it's going to go by, and it really, you only need to know whether it's major, minor, or dominant, and you alter it to any way that you see fit. And that's all that's as simple as I can make it. And I think that if you follow these few little simple rules and a few little tips that I showed you about shapes and making things be visual and using your ear, practice it enough till the shape gets associated with a sound in your ear. And you got to remember, it's just a habit. I remember when somebody first showed me, well, I mean, that whole shape, I knew what that was going to sound like before I did it, you know. And this is much the same thing. Might be a lot more shapes, more sounds to learn, but the idea is the same. So you need to start somewhere, so I hope that these few things that I showed you throughout this video helps. And thank you very much. I had a good time doing this. Thank you.